Morning and welcome back. Another Friday, another end of the week. What is or what constitutes a human person? What are the most basic things or parts or substances, as it were, that constitute that which we call humanity? There are those things are present, but they're not necessarily parts per se, more of, maybe we could say, abilities. And in fact, some of them, in a way, we can say that we share with other creatures. Now, of course, these two things that we're going to see, we share in a sense with other creatures as well. But they're kind of the parts. So, yes. Flesh, first of all, the body, the physical thing that occupies the space in this universe. Yet are not the desks that you sit in, or chairs that you sit in, or the things that you write on, whether a notepad or a laptop computer, do they not have something physical to them as well? And yet there is something different about us versus these other things. So there must be something more to the human person than just a body. What's the difference between a living body and a dead body? If you look at one before the moment of death, one shortly after, in the physical parts, nothing seems to have changed. And yet something has changed to cause us to declare it to be dead. In the Catholic understanding of the human person, most of creation, that which animates the body is what we define as the soul. At a basic level, it is that which animates the body, which literally comes from the Latin anima, the word for soul. Yes, because there is something inside of them that allows them to move, to animate, versus the things that we see and encounter. We do not call tables and chairs, notepads and pencils and laptops animals, because they are not animated. They do not move of their own ability or will. So in talking about the human person, we must first understand what constitutes a human person. And it is this duality, as it were, at its most basic level, between the physical body and the unphysical, spiritual, we may say, soul. This is what makes up any human person. Now, we normally we say within the soul are those faculties that were brought up earlier: intellect, will. It is within our human soul to be able to experience or to carry out these things. So combined together, they make up a human person. This human person then engages in living a life in this universe. Whatever that life may be, however long it may be, however good or bad, known or unknown, and that life is above all filled, rightly so, with various experiences. We cannot avoid it at all. If we are souls inside bodies, bodies that possess a soul. To even live requires us to have experiences. Whether the basic sense experiences that are given to us, beholding the light and the darkness, tasting the sweet and the bitter, smelling the sweet and the not so sweet, touching the easy to feel and the hard to feel, hearing the beautiful and the not so beautiful, or experiences that are far deeper, that use those, but go even beyond that. That while we experience them within our senses, there is something more that is moved within us. It is these experiences which should lead us to pursue or to desire to find meaning, some sort of meaning for all of this. Why is it we should do all of this? Why should we desire and want? We're asking the major questions. Why do I exist rather than not exist? Why does anything exist? What is this all about? What is this all for? What is the purpose or the goal or the end? Whichever way that can be framed. Now, in looking at this through the Catholic moral perspective, we need to first go back to what were the original experiences. The experiences we were meant to have, to encounter, and to experience from the beginning, from the original plan, the original divine plan for humanity. Because there is some purpose for it that is already there, that needs to be understood and to be rediscovered. These original experiences are often lost. Why? Because of perhaps routine. In our own day, the great mechanization of the world. And above all, the most harmful, sin. Sin makes it hard for us to experience these things. And we need to rediscover what they are in order to more fully understand who and what we are, to be able to live it out. Now, the first original experience we looked at in our text is the experience of original solitude. What is this solitude? What is this original solitude? It relates to what humanity is in relation to everything else. For did we not say earlier that there are other creatures like this that possess a body and a soul? Certainly animals. Animals can be said to have a body and to possess a soul. Lack of the soul marks the absence, or the loss of the soul marks the distinction between life and death in an animal. We can, in a sense, even apply this to plants. Ancient philosophers talked about plants having a vegetative soul, that there is something within that at least makes them grow, spread out, blossom. I don't know about you all, the flowers are starting to blossom in some places. I have a bunch of daffodils in my front yard. I did not plant them, they were already there. They're already open and blooming. They move, they grow. So there is some sort of soul that animates them, even if it is in a far lesser way compared to animals, compared to humans. We could say the same thing on a microcosmic scale. Bacteria, viruses, perhaps even, in a sense, proteins. All these sorts of things that seem to operate and move on their own. We are not unique in being able to do that. Not at all. However, there is a way that we are alone among creatures. Not just in a sense distinct, but almost as it were separate. Because that's what ultimately solitude is, right? Talk about solitary confinement. Solitary confinement, but separates us from the rest of the community. We can isolate ourselves in solitude. But humanity experiences this solitude among creatures. And it happens based on a particular phrase that we encounter in that first chapter of Genesis. That in going through all of the creation, going through that traditional account, the 6 days of creation, God resting on the seventh. The text goes on and lists all these things, the light and the darkness, land and the sea, the waters in the heavens versus the waters down below, and then occupying it, stars, sun, moon, birds, animals. And lastly, in that account in Genesis 1, lastly comes humanity. And in the text, we hear God say, let us make man, humanity, in two things, in our image and likeness. And the text re-emphasizes that. So humanity was created in the image and likeness of God. And even in that first account, in that first chapter, humanity is the pinnacle. It is the last thing created by humanity. Speaking in a sense that you're kind of saving the best for last, God does not need to do any more in that account. Hence why he rests on the seventh day. He is done with that work. How is it, though, that this image and likeness, how does it manifest, or how does it come out in humanity versus the rest of the creatures, rest of creation? The main way that this emerges is in wonder. In wonder. Human beings, unlike other creatures, so far as we know, are the only ones that are able to wonder at everything around us. Unlike any others. Are there other creatures that stop to behold the stars? Are there other creatures that sit and contemplate and just marvel at everything around them? The beauty of nature around them. Are there other creatures that make that effort to try to capture it in some way? Whether in art, whether in film, whether in photography? No. Almost every other creature, as far as we have seen, that is not us, strives to do what it can to survive. It may do that in various ways. It may propagate in various ways. Some are more active. Predators, hunters. Some are more passive. Animals that exist in herds. And most of them, they don't make time to do this. Or if they do, they are doing it in the most secretive manner. Which I don't blame them if they do. It is wonder. Wonder at existence, wonder at the universe, wonder at everything that is or that can be perceived. That separates humanity from the rest of creation. And hence introduces this sort of solitude. Only we have this experience. Only we are able to process it. And how are we able to do this? How are we able to wonder? Some will argue that this image and likeness is really principally or only found in the soul of the human person. Why? Because the soul, being immaterial, not in a corporeal form, not physical, cannot be destroyed. At least in the sense that our bodies can be destroyed, right? It's very easy to destroy this frail structure. But the soul can only be destroyed by God. So they will say, well, the image and likeness of God that is found in humanity is in the soul. Yes?
You said the soul can only be destroyed by God. What does it mean for the soul when, for example, someone goes to hell?
Well, it's not destroyed.
Is it just, I mean, what's the difference?
It is punished.
Okay.
It's not destroyed, though. But only the one who has constituted it into being and made it immaterial could destroy it. God does not, ultimately we believe. But I cannot destroy a soul. None of us can destroy the spiritual. Being physical beings, though we have some connection to the spiritual, we can't destroy that. So ultimately, the only one is the highest authority, God. But God does not do that. He can, but he does not. I'm not saying he does. I'm just saying he's the only one who can. So this image and likeness that is found in the soul is not just found in the soul, actually. It is found in the soul that is united to, put together with, the body. This is where we begin to see the first sort of tension within humanity after the original experience. While humanity is made of these two constitutive parts, they are meant to cooperate and to coexist together. And yet, in the broken, sinful world, what happens is we want to emphasize one over the other. That we want to say the body is more important or the soul is more important. And for most of human history, the emphasis has been on the soul. Why? Because the physical and the material is corruptible. It is changeable, degradable. Many, whether Christian or not, and much of it in pre-Christian times, or in places that weren't Christian, but still religious in some way. That the image that was presented, that was seen in much of this, is to see the soul as being imprisoned in the body. And that the task of the individual, whether a religious individual, whether a philosophical individual, esoteric, or mystical, or whatever interpretation you give to it, was to ultimately free the soul from the confines of the body. This is seen, for example, in many ancient Hindu practices, and even many that still endure today. The practice of yoga, for example, is not meant to be a nice little exercise that helps tone your body. No, it is meant to help free you from the constraints of it. Putting yourself in these weird, semi-ridiculous positions to help kind of jar that relationship so as to free your soul to pursue the higher, the greater, supposedly. It has only been in the more modern era that the scale has tilted heavily towards the body, with the rejection of any sort of eternity or divinity, of something that cannot be experienced, quote unquote, or of only those things that I can experience. The emphasis has switched more towards the body. It is in the body or through the body that is the primary means of existence. This is at best just allows me to exist, if it's even acknowledged to be there. But the thing is, we need to embrace both parts. In embracing our humanity, both are constitutive, both are necessary. We are humans, we are human beings, we are human persons because we have both. What will often happen is to see the body as a tool. It is an instrument. In that perspective that leans toward the soul, which can happen in certain Christian circles. That your body is therefore no more different than any other thing that you use. It's no different than this marker. It's no different than your computers, or your pads, or your desks, or your cars. It is no different. They are all tools to help you. They are good, they are useful. But if they break, if they fail, you may discard them, right? If your computer stops working, you break it over your knee and then get another one, right? Please don't try to do that. They're a lot stronger now. And actually, they're a little bit weaker than they used to be. They used to be thick.
Try and break this one over your knee, just flip the other way.
Probably would.
So we'll do that now.
I am not advocating for that. You cannot claim that I advocated for that. It's on tape. If your car breaks down, you dispose of it, you sell it or take it to a junk shop, you get another one, right? It is not the same with the body. We can see this in some ways in the way that we use language concerning this. What will we say more often than not? We will say, I have a body. That is possessive. I have a car. I have a job. I have this, I have that. I have a body. Yet, in the proper understanding of the relationship, the interaction within the human person, of what it means to be a fully human person, we ought to truly say, I am a body. The difference being not possessive, but essential in the sense of what constitutes us, what is our essence, or what we are. I am a body. What is one of the most important things human beings need on a permanent basis? Not just necessarily kind of even from here or there. What is something that they need on a permanent basis in order to live?
Water.
Well, I mean, do we need to drink water constantly?
At least food.
Do we need to eat food constantly? Like, are you eating food right now? Are you drinking right now?
Oxygen.
All right, you got me there. Not just thinking of oxygen. Besides those things, what else? What's the temperature outside?
40.
Did you look that up? No.
It was
It is.
this morning.
It's pretty cold, right? Do we have fur to keep us warm?
Small amounts.
Do we have that much fur? You're trying to.
I'm working on it.
And then, then start trimming it some. talking to myself. We need shelter, right? We need shelter from the elements. Why? Because let's be honest, our body as it's constituted is very weak against the elements. Whichever elements, hot or cold, wet or dry. Unless it's within like this small range and a certain kind of, certain kind of humidity, we're not able to last for long. If I force you to be outside for, the next 24 hours, you can't hide anywhere, you can't go anywhere. You have to act and exist like the other animals. You probably couldn't make it, or you'd get very sick, wouldn't you? Right now, even though the weather's kind of changing, it's still March. It's still it can be cold at night. The days can be tolerable. So that normally comes in the form of what we build as a house, right? We all normally have some sort of housing. It may be an independent one-family house. It may be something that has multiple people living there. Apartments, condos, dorms, right? It can be grand, planned out. It could be improvised. We can make a house. We can make a portable house. Anybody ever been camping in a tent? Portable house, right? Not the strongest. I wouldn't want to be in a tent in the midst of a hurricane or tornado. But for the majority of the weather we have, a tent is good enough to be a house, to be a shelter, right? What is the difference then between a house and a home? What would you say is the difference?
So like the body and the soul, the house is kind of like empty. It's the body without the soul. The home is, it kind of encompasses everything. There's that unspoken quality that you feel when you enter that you know that it has meaning.
That's often how it can be seen in talking about this, and there is some truth in that. I don't want to deny that, but there is more to that. There's more to it than that. Other ideas, other thoughts about what makes the difference between a house and a home? What makes your home home? Whatever you call home, wherever you call. What makes it a home? Family? Others? Other thoughts? Other things?
You said like decorating it, like the way you like it?
Yes. Having things in there, posters, furniture, whatever decorations you want to put up. What's one of the things we normally do in starting up in our dorms? We make it our own. Depending on the facility and whatnot, you're provided with very simple things. A room, or maybe a couple rooms, a bed, maybe a couple beds, you have yours and your dorm mate has theirs, desks, dressers, and that's it, right? It is bare, but it is there. But we make it our own. And we show that it is our own in the way that we live it, in being there, and we make it a part of ourselves. And decorating it and having friends over, having family over. We can at times treat the body as if it's just a house. It's just, we can say that, we can act like it's just this structure that I have to kind of be in sometimes, but it's not really where I reside. It's just like a shelter. So we can transform it even from like a house to something more like an office or a classroom. When in fact, the body is meant to be a home. It is our truest home because it is where we are meant to live, not just to exist, to live. So if we do not understand that, we become estranged from our bodies. We treat it, like I said, more like this house. So there is this discord between the body and the soul. And that discord spills over into our relationship with everything else. Because if we are estranged from our bodies, if we are not in accord with what we are as being body and soul, as being instead of possessing, we begin to look at all of creation in the same way. Hence all the recent struggles that we have been seeing in concerns for the environment. That is very much a modern concern. Why is it a modern concern? Because it's been a modern idea to treat ourselves as houses instead of homes. And to treat all of this as if it's just a house rather than a home. But this composition of being ensouled bodies or embodied souls put together, open to this wonder, is what gives us our capacity to know and to discover, to find God in the world. That through that wonder, to truly understand and appreciate and live out this image and likeness of God that is within us. Why? Because that wonder opens us up, is meant to open us up to the other, to that which is, can be understood and seen within ourselves, but is not fully encapsulated within ourselves. To go back all the way to God. Wonder is meant to open us towards the infinite, towards God. It is in the body that we are able then to be free. Which seems counterintuitive. Doesn't a body limit us? Since it is physical, it must occupy a certain amount of space, dimension, at least the 3 dimensions, if not the 4th, or however many more dimensions there are. Length, width, height, time, space. No, the bodies allow us to be free. If we truly understand why we have them and why and how to use them, how to live in and with and through them. An analogy that might work for this might be the musician and the musician's instrument. When the musician first approaches the instrument, she doesn't understand it, perhaps to its fullest extent. She may only, know how the basics of how it works. A piano, for example, you press a key, it strikes a chord, and it makes a note. A specific note that is distinct and different from the other notes. But beginning to understand what that instrument does, what that piano does, she is able then to know its capabilities, what it is created for, and then to make wondrous music with it. Whether just playing the pieces that others have already composed, or even composing her own. It is similar, it is far greater with us. The body, yes, in a way, it limits us. No, we can't fly. I guess there's the one thing anybody would want the human body to do. Everybody wants the body to fly. No, we can't fly. We cannot fly on our own. Can't flap my arms like this and just go off. It'd be great to do that though, right? Maybe, maybe not. Our bodies don't regenerate. I can't just cut my hand off and it just grows right back. Like various, certain insects or certain reptiles or certain types of fish do, right? But the freedom that we do have in the body, freedom is the ability to be open to the world, to receive new things we encounter in it, to respond to all of it with genuine creativity. So to wonder at it all, we can only do that. We're only able of doing that through the body. This wonder leads us to being creative. Why? Because we do not just want to behold it. We want to express it in some way. We want to express what we behold about this world, and we are creative in it, which leads us to work. Not to work merely in the sense of just doing something, occupying the time, or doing the basics that we need to live. But doing something with, for, and through someone. It's only been in the last maybe half century or so that we started trying, putting creative instruments in the hands of animals. Usually some type of primate, or sometimes maybe like an elephant, for example. But let's be honest, we teach them to do that. They don't do it on their own. They don't create instruments to be able to do that. While their works may have a beauty or a wonder to them, the wonder of the ways that they work together, or the way that they build, the elegance of a spider's web, for example. Yet they do all of that out of necessity. not out of a superfluous desire to express their wonder at it all. Humanity alone is able to do this in its image and likeness of God. Because being ensouled bodies, ensouled with a particularly human soul, that unique image and likeness, the body becomes a vehicle of revelation. Ultimately, revelation by God. As we will see, though, humanity is not created to be alone. Though it has solitude among all of creation, and having this unique place of being created in this image and likeness, being open with this wonder in the physical creation, yet humanity is not created to be alone. So while it possesses that original solitude, that makes it unique, different, though having similarities to other parts of creation, it is still meant for some sort of unity. But also a sort of vulnerableness, openness that gets expressed as well in original nakedness. These will be the other things that we begin to see as we continue reading, we continue looking. For now, that we end looking at this original solitude, that humanity alone, created in this image and likeness, open to this wonder that is able to happen because we have a body. Not the tool of the body, but that we are a body. Comments, questions, thoughts on any of that? All right. For next class, then, be working on your read up on the next chapter, chapter 2. Begin to look at original unity. What does that mean in humanity? Remember to get me, if you haven't gotten it to me in the participation assignment, what's going to be your issue. You should have, if you haven't already, you should have begun to do that for your next writing assignment. What's going to be the political issue you're going to look at? Recall, the 2 prohibitions. Nothing on abortion and contraception, nothing on gender or sexuality. You should already know what the Catholic position are. Most of those, we're going to talk about those in more detail in class anyway. So look that up. Look that up. Be prepared. Give that to me if you haven't already. If not, and then we'll go from there. I hope you have a good weekend. And if you have any questions or anything else, let me know. We'll see you then.